is the central part of all of the go-to-market audits that we're going through. If you are familiar with how becoming a public company works, there's a lot of things along the way that you need to do that the government and other agencies want to see have done, and we're in the process of those things right now. And this has been a central focus of those audits. The custody of probably our most important asset is the number one thing on every audit that I've spoken with an auditor about. So this has been looked through by experts at both of our auditing partners, as well as I believe the Trail of Bits team looked through this as part of their audit that was most famous for the Cat 2 release. And so this has been audited by, I think, probably the best security minds that we could have focus on it, as well as I think the most talented cryptocurrency team in the planet. The Chia team has also been extensively working on this. The only thing that got maybe more attention than this was everything that we did in the run up to the actual release of mainnet, and I think probably their congruent levels of attention across the company. And so as much auditing as possible from the most expert people we get, Trail of Bits, and the partners we're doing for the public audit things, and then months and months and months of testing internally. This stuff has been ready since almost, I believe, the beginning of March, and so we're now comfortable moving it so that over a half a year of diligence has been done on just this. What took us 40 minutes earlier, Gene?
It happened quickly when we actually got everything pulled together. It was more double checking that everything went from where it was supposed to where it was supposed to with the right wallets.
All right, it's 40 minutes on the tail end of months, right?
yeah 40 minutes plus
9 months of testing. we actually went through a stage where we scaled back some of the actual functionality. There was an additional rate limit that was there for certain things, and we've decided that to the extent we want to add that, we would rather warn everybody that we're going to move it to a new vault with those requirements on it, and then just move it and wait 90 days and have it end up there. So we do not think this is the be all end all for us. There's some things we'd like to add, but we definitely wanted to get it out of its rudimentary stuff, which had way too much dependence on me, to a situation now where my pie is not worth $750 million as of this morning, and instead is worth about $80. And we have complete and real controls that takes multiple officers and vectors to do things with it. So it was an expensive pie.
Alrighty, so moving on. We have a question from YouTube that I'll go ahead and throw in here because I think it's relevant to you, JM. Folks kind of want to know what's the status on the availability of some form of plot compression without having to use proprietary software and a proprietary pool.
Yeah, so we have on the public roadmap plot format 2.0, which will include new plotting tools. We're going to be making updates to BladeBit in memory and BladeBit disk to be able to do this new plot format. We are exceeding the 20% target that we set today with the code. Now we're trying to get it production ready. I mentioned to some folks, if you are interested in testing this early, get in the beta program. We'll also have beta builds up when they are ready to do this. We have some other exciting plot changes coming, so we're trying to do it all at once so people don't have to replot and then replot again if they have some changes to plotting software that makes it much faster. So let's say Q1 is still the target. We're hoping to have some code out in the beta before the end of the year, yeah, it'll all be open source, and we'll go through. There's probably a lot of questions about what techniques we're using to get the plot compression. Is it the same as NoSSD? Is it different? What's the impact on farming and harvesting? That's all stuff that is much longer than I can answer here. So we are going to do a dedicated storage AMA where we go through all that in gory detail and walk everybody through how that works.
Thank you. Gene, you tagged, you want to answer this one? I can also answer if you don't want to. Folks want to know what's the requirements for being added to the Chia Network public team on Keybase, because there is a permission approval process there now.
I'll let you go ahead and answer that question.
Sure. So for those who've been around Keybase for a long time, we've had a problem with some trolls lately, like a very unified targeted group of trolls, and they just keep making throwaway accounts and come in and just stir up drama for everyone. And we love constructive feedback. We love healthy debate. We love valid criticism. We are not a you must speak good of Chia or you aren't welcome kind of community. Gene loves a healthy, well-reasoned debate on the merits of pretty much anything that is in good faith. We'll be the first to admit when one of our ideas isn't the best if someone has a better proposal. But What we don't want is people coming in and just stirring up FUD and causing drama for personal agenda reasons or whatever the case may be, or in some cases actually organized like anti-astroturfing campaigns from someone else. Like that's a thing that happens to us. And so we've had a problem this summer with a very targeted harassment in our Keybase, and it simply made it an unwelcoming place for everyone else who wanted to engage with us organically. So we added a very simple requirement that I think is quite reasonable, in that you have to click to ask to join, and you go into a list of pending invites that we all see, the moderators see, the Chia staff see, any of us can approve it. And our approval process is simply, you have to have some Keybase proofs. Keybase is really great for their proof system. You link it to a Reddit account or a Twitter account or a personal website. There's a lot of different things you can do. And if you establish a proof of identity of any kind, it doesn't even have to be your real identity. It can be a Twitter account that is like a throwaway pseudonymous Twitter account. We don't need to know who you are as a real identity person. We simply need to know who you are beyond this Keybase identity. Like, what's your Twitter account? What's your GitHub account? What's your, Reddit account? Something like that we can allocate to an actual entity. As long as you have at least one proof, we'll accept you. Simple as that. That way, if someone does begin to stir drama and cause a problem, we know the proof of who that person was, and that won't let them make a new account and come back and start trouble again under the same proof, under the same account. I know you're probably saying, oh, well, they can go around. They can create more Reddit accounts. They can create more Twitter. Yeah, sure they can. But it's a threshold that actually has dramatically cut down on the drama in the channels. It has made it a much more welcoming and friendly place. And policy will probably keep for the time being as long as we're still on Keybase. But that's the requirement threshold. Just have a proof. Have a proof. Yeah. There's one proof. I can't remember which one it is, Gene. There's one particular proof that's super throwaway. Yeah. Stellar wallet, that won't count. It needs something other than a Stellar wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to get clarity, we're sorry that we can't have true fully anon, but what we're saying is that pseudo anon is totally acceptable, but you need to have some reputational skin in the game. So I will say, like, if you show up with a GitHub account that's an hour old, you may still not qualify. Now, we'll probably let you in, but that just means we're going to ban you really quickly when you start misbehaving.
Yep.
But you can ask some yellow birds in Keybase once you get there how much crap we put up with from people who are actually skin in the game.
Yeah. Gene, everyone's favorite topic, climate warehouse. Lots have happened with it lately. Are there any consolidated updates you can share with folks here that kind of wrap all that into kind of one bit of where it's at, where things are going, and what kind of impact it means for Chia and Chia Network both?
So it's now the Climate Action Data Trust.
Yeah, there we go. It took
a
second to. Yeah.
Yeah, this was all changed this week, so I'm trying to keep up too. So it is now officially a partnership between the government of Singapore, AIDA, and the World Bank. AIDA is the primary mover and shaker in creating all the standards, and for example, Vera spun out of AIDA, to give you a sense of that in the past. It is live operationally. It is not yet live for new data until December, as they discussed, but we are currently outlining some of the initial countries and the initial voluntary registries, which will move in. The best way to explain what this does is, as Edgar works for the public U.S. equities market, this is very much the same sort of thing. So the idea here is that in the future, in the very near future, if you have a carbon offset project, the first thing you will do when you try to register it with your registry, and that's either the voluntary registries or your national registry if you're in one of the nations that requires you to use the national registry, is they're going to check to see if you're already in the Climate Action Data Trust. If you already are, then you're not going to get to register it twice. So that starts the process of making this much more authentic and accurate. Once you do pass that check and you get into, say, Vera or the Colombian registry, then as soon as you complete their steps, you'll be published into the Climate Action Data Trust. I'll get it right sooner or later, CADT. And that means that you have met the basic minimum to prove that you are at least not a complete fraud. It is, however, not enough to say that you are a high quality carbon project, because that's a separate analysis. And so, people may not know this because they usually only interact with Edgar around well-known public companies, but any company can file with Edgar and can register their debt, can do other things, and it has kind of much less of the rigor that being a public company has. Same sort of thing here, where you might have projects that are registering, but they aren't meeting the quality standards of, for example, the project we're doing with the IFC. And so what the IFC is doing is saying, hey, once you've gone and done that, and once, by the way, we expect most every voluntary and national registry to move very quickly to issuing their own Chia asset tokens for each year and type of carbon. What happens with those coins, though, as a project or as a fund, like the Carbon Opportunities Fund, is that you can apply to have them kind of upgraded to the IFC coin. As the IFC coin will be the well-known coin that if you meet the standards for each of those coins, then the buyers, the corporations, and others who want to offset their carbon spend will have confidence that you meet that criteria, and therefore they can just go buy 50,000 tons of IFC natural sequestration coin and know that trees really were planted. They really did remove that much CO2 this year, and that they can then, when they retire that carbon by retiring it on chain, it'll then retire the Vera coin, for example, and then Vera will mark that retired in the CADT, and so you'll actually be able to trace from the retirement that say Exxon or Meta or Microsoft does down to each individual project that actually got retired and how much tons per happened right there in the data layer capability that is the CADT. So you've now got keys to trees auditing of high quality carbon being retired on chain and being resold on chain. So you should start to expect I don't know if it's as much of a Cambrian explosion as we had the first cat time around, but you're going to start seeing more and more of the various carbon registries that are pretty well known in the countries issuing their own cats. And you'll be seeing those cats then migrating into the various IFC coins and potentially other coins like, wouldn't surprise me, somebody like Moody's wants to do the same sort of thing. There's going to be a period where some projects will still be selling their Vera coin directly to Microsoft using an offer file. And some projects will be, moving into the IFC coin and trying to be part of that, market instrument that sets the global price of carbon. And, to be clear, we're shipping the tools for the registries to tokenize. They're testing right now. I think we're going to final production November 1-ish. So it's a, near real time kind of thing.
Okay. Justin, you might want this one, maybe Gene. But this question is, Thanksgiving's coming up, at least here in the US. Do we have any tasty silicon on the plate? And I think what they mean is, what's the status on the ASICs for the Time Lords?
Yeah. So I think we had like a 2-week delay. So I think I'm going to more say it's going to be the end of the month and maybe the first week of December. But we're expecting to see actual first ship production units in hand. We're going to have to do some stuff on our end first to make sure that we figure out how we're going to clock these down and slowly move them into testnet, for example. We may start a separate testnet to try to do that with. The problem is they're 4x faster. And so it would be a weird day if we just turned them on. I would hate to knock that many nodes around. But so hopefully we'll figure out a pattern to be able to kind of slowly move them in and step them up. But it's gonna be pretty cool. You're gonna be able to run with like an older gaming PC and one of these little boxes that fits in a Raspberry Pi 4 enclosure, 2 wall warts for your computer and it, and you'll be a Time Lord. In the kind of, call it either late December or early January timeframe, we will be publishing what the criteria are for obtaining these. The kind of things we know are going to be in that criteria are going to be, ecosystem players. So obviously larger pools are absolutely going to be getting preferences. Academics who are doing real research in this field and will, be using these for interesting things will absolutely be there. We are going to be kind of asking for a general location about where they're going to be because we want to make sure we get a good global spread of where the various Time Lords sit in our REN. We don't want to know specifically at all, but we do want to know that like you're in Western Canada or you're in, Hong Kong. That's kind of the resolution we care about. We're going to run a handful of them as well so that we will have our own kind of geographically diverse set, but we want to make sure they're actually getting used and going to the right people. We're probably going to charge, I don't know, somewhere between $500 and $1,000 per. I promise you we're losing a lot more money per on them than that. But this is to make sure that you're serious. And obviously, if there's something specific that we should waive it for you and you have a compelling case, we're going to hear that too. But I do want people to have the expectation that, it's not a free lunch here. But, things have gone great with that. It's one of those rare projects that has stayed on time. But for supply chain issues, and even there, we were able to vault over that with only about a week loss. So really excited about it. It really means that there's just no way to mess around with the Chia network.
Cool. Mr. England, any comments on the sudden fee block space usage? Min fees that kind of popped up in the last week or two keep climbing. Is it a dust storm? Is there something else going on? They speculate it's a climate warehouse.
It's me. I did that. So I don't know. We have to mint a whole bunch of NFTs because we promised you guys a whole bunch of NFTs a while ago. Jay's has a whole thing that he's going to talk about around that. So I don't want to.
Yeah, I should talk about that next since you brought it up. Yeah.
But there was a dust storm going on. It started, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago or so at the beginning of last week. And I believe what's happening, we're in the process of minting 130,000 NFTs, I think is what it is. We need to get our transactions into the mempool, so we're paying a decent fee to get them in there. And it looks like the dust storm is matching us. And so it's been a really interesting dynamic seeing the mean level of fee from whatever tool they're using to run a dust storm match us and kind of match the traffic on the blockchain. But that is us, I'm doing that. I apologize. We'll be done a couple weeks, depending on kind of what the mempool looks like. And yeah, obviously we're paying the fees, so I hope farmers are really enjoying the little extra block win kind of money that we're paying out. And in addition to that, when we did the pre-farm move earlier, we paid a way higher fee because we wanted to be sure that that stuff got out ahead of everything else that was kind of going into the mempool. So needless to say, I'm feeling that squeeze as well. But I think this is healthy and a great like ability to gather data of what kind of higher pressure fee, higher value transaction on chain will look like, which is something that we're always aspiring for.
Amusingly, I'm not entirely sure the Duster even knows that like they're in a bidding war with us on this. I think it's just that they have a script running that's like whatever the fee is, increase a little bit to stay on top. And I don't think they realize that we're doing this. Yeah, it's kind of amusing. They're probably gonna like come back to their tooling and be like, where'd all my money go?
The farmers.
yeah, to the farmers. So I want to talk a little bit about that because I know the questions are going to come up, so I'll go ahead and answer it now about the holiday NFTs. It is October 28th, 2022, and we talked about a holiday NFT for you guys in December 2021, and these actually say Chia 2021 on them. So a couple little things here. I'm not going to go really deep down this rabbit hole because I have a blog post that's going to come out when the redemption tool gets launched and this is ready for prime time and we're done minting. I don't kind of go into stuff in more detail, but I want to just basically say a lot of this is a combination of things. It's no one thing. It's the death by 1,000 cut scenario, sort of. When we announced the holiday cat in December of last year, it was very much a skunkworks project. It was like, can we do this? Because cats were new. Everyone was really in the zeitgeist of it. And the new hotness was, Chia said NFTs are coming soon. Let's issue cats you can redeem for NFTs. And so I said to some folks inside, can we do that elegantly? Is this something we can probably do? Is give a cat now as a 2021 reward that they can redeem for an NFT later as soon as they come out? And everyone's like, yeah, it's easy. We can do that. And so we did it as a surprise and delight little thing we were going to do over the holiday break and just kind of surprise everyone with these. And at the time, our expectation was our NFT standard comes out around summer, which it did, and we would have NFTs ready to go a day or two later, and then you could just swap for them. Unfortunately, as with software development, 6 months looking back before that, we thought it'd be really easy to just kind of turn the key on all that for you right after we launched the NFT standard. But a lot of things happened between right before the NFT standard and when this came out. We had the Cat 2 situation that we had to deal with. That was a much higher priority than bulk minting 130,000 NFTs for you guys. No offense, but that Cat 2 thing was important. We had other technological surprises. We realized the NFT standard is an amazing standard that we've released. It's a really cool thing, but we needed a tool to allow us to mint this many NFTs that we had to build on top of that. And in doing so, we learned new things as we went along, and we had to change some of our assumptions. And software development's hard. We had to get to the point the tool was ready. We released the NFT standard the 1st of July. It's October. It is almost holiday 2022, which is the grief I've been getting in Keybase and Reddit. It's almost holiday 2022. It's also the halfway point between when we released the NFT standard and the holidays. It's not like we've gone like half of a year way into like it's been 3 months. It's not ideal. It's not what I wanted. It's not the expectation I set for you guys, and that's 100% on me. But it's also like it's a perception thing. Like it feels like it's really close to the holidays, but we're also just as close as to when NFTs came out. So it's a perception, I think, also. But that's on me. We are not the Chia we were in December 2021. We have a much bigger team. We have much smarter people doing stuff around these things. And the way we set expectations and the way we manage expectations is night and day different now from what we were a year ago. I do not think we will put you in this painful position again. We're going to have much better stuff on how we go about doing this. So I apologize for that. It was just meant to be a little treat, and you're going to get your treat. It's coming. It's been hard for us, but we're getting it out to you guys. The cool thing is these are going to be the first of a series of like merit badges we're going to do. You'll be able to get really cool NFTs for doing stuff. If you're part of the beta program right now, who's helping beta some of the stuff that JM's been doing with some of our engineers around storage and a few other things, for example, they're going to get NFTs for that. We're going to look at other ways we can give you NFTs as well. It's kind of like reward systems as little merit badges from Chia. They're not meant to be super high value. They're meant to be a cool little like collectible achievement. And lastly, all the NFTs you're going to get are going to be identical. They're just an addition. It's like, one of whatever. And so you'll be randomized numbers. So they're all the same design. People have found them on testnet. You can find the design there. It's been kind of passed around a little bit on Twitter and a few other places. And just to answer the question that I've been asked several times, no, we're not doing a holiday 2022 NFT. And it's not because, oh my God, it's too hard, we're not doing this again. This was specifically meant to be the very first year of Chia in 2021 was very important to us and very important to our community. And members of our community who found a block during that time frame and are part of literally the foundation building blocks of our first year, we wanted to give them a very small, delightful reward. The reward's taking longer than expected, but that's what it was meant for. It was not meant to be an establishment of we give these out every holiday season. Not to say we won't again in the future for another reason, but that's not the plan right now. That there is no plan for a 2022 one. So with that said, let's see, what else we got here question-wise? Cameron, here's one for you. For folks who haven't seen Cameron on a call before, Cameron is our head of developer products. So on our product team, who leads all the cool shit we build, Cameron's in charge of everything that's for developers. So Cameron, is bulk assignment of NFTs to DIDs awaiting singleton spend aggregation, or is it something that can be built based off the bulk minter that we've recently released?
Yeah, good question. So actually it's neither. The ability to bulk assign NFTs to your DID, it isn't something that's dependent on singleton spend aggregation. And so for those who are not familiar with that feature that we're working on, it's the ability to have a singleton coin on the chain that multiple spend bundles are able to spend within the same block, which is something that can be useful for many applications. That's actually not something that would be necessary to assign a DID to multiple NFTs at the same time. So the other part of the question is this something that makes sense to add to the bulk mint tool? While it is possible that we could add a feature like this to the bulk mint tool, the mint tool is really intended to create NFTs. I think the feature that's really wanted here is a addition to the wallet RPCs that would allow, instead of assigning one NFT a DID, to expand that to be able to do it in bulk. So this is probably something that would be done at the wallet and wallet RPC level. Even if we added support in the bulk mint tool for it, we would still need that RPC for it. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Cool, thank you. Gene, back on the subject earlier of the mempool fees, what do we have to prevent transaction fees from just rocketing out of control like Ethereum gas fees currently are?
Well, first of all, we have better design. That means you're going to get a heck of a lot more TPS and a heck of more usability for the same fee. And that's quite intentional. I mean, right now, for tech debt reasons, we had limited mempool to 50, well, not mempool, pardon me, block size to 50%. We actually relaxed the mempool restriction back to its original intended design. You'll start seeing us relax that in kind of like 10% increments so that, slowly but surely get back to what looks to be more like 40 TPS. We are comfortable sustaining 20 TPS already before we're even getting fee pressure here. So, compare that to, I don't know, 12-ish TPS on a good day for Ethereum. So there's a long way to go before that happens, but that's also why you'll see on the product roadmap that we are rolling out our ZK rollup primitives that are necessary for people to build ZK rollups. And, what Bram's doing in gaming is kind of indirectly building better Lightning. There is a lot easier opportunity to build payment channels on Chia in ways that work much, much better than even Bitcoin. And we're kind of skipping past, Lightning has the things they'd like to do to move from HTLCs to PTLCs. We're going on past that to like non-staking openings with complete closing capability where, you can start playing a game without having to even do an initial transaction on chain in a trustless manner. So we're very comfortable, but at the time that we start having the fee pressure, that it will have outlets to start moving transactions off. But as farmers and as a company, our current goal is to fill the blocks and start fee pressure. Ultimately, we would like layer one transaction fees for your average transaction to be about $10. That's a little higher than I think we've seen sustained other places, but it's absolutely in the ballpark. But, we start talking about moving some large portion of all cash, equities, debt, and creating a carbon market, that's a tremendous amount of demand for block space. Now, one of the things that's really cool about Chia, the CoinSet model, Chia Lisp, our layer twos are not as independent or as hard and brittle to get over from. If you're the Bored Ape Yacht Club and moving to Polygon's a big freaking deal, you got to move everybody at the same time. in our world, you know, if you want to take your Chia Rex, which by the way, that thing was freaking cool this morning. Thank you, Chia Rex. You know, up to a ZK rollup, you just spend it to the ZK rollup, and everybody else can stay down on layer 1, and you go up to layer 2 and do what you do. You know, we think things like the Climate Action Data Trust will probably end up on payment channels because it's even cheaper for them, and they're just moving data. But you know, that's a choice they get to make, and not everybody has to move at the same time. You just have to monitor the different places where, you know, the various NFTs sit, so that, you know, you're still keeping up with the database. So there's a lot better kind of scaling story of how Chia grows. But right now, we're just focused on getting high value transactions on chain first.
All right. So this question, I think, is kind of comes from YouTube. I think it's useful for both Cameron and Eric. And on that note, folks, Eric here, this is his debut AMA. I probably should have introduced him at the start. I forgot we had someone new at the start. Eric is our Director of Developer Relations. The word's hard. Director of Developer Relations. There we go. He's probably going to show up for a lot more of these. Also, in general, when engaging with the developer community, you're going to see a lot more of him and a lot less of me because as much as I like talking, he's better at talking to these kinds of people about these things. And I've also just realized there's a really wild inverse thing going on here where like my hair is still brown and red and my red beard is going gray at the edges, and he's got a nice lush red beard and is going gray at the edges of his hair. And other than that, we look very similar, and that freaks me out. So anyways, all that said, I got a question here for both you and Cameron from YouTube, and that is basically asking us about enterprise and larger partners. They want to know, do we have any plans for a .NET or other language API and SDK implementations so that larger scale customers who are used to just kind of plug and play established technologies can easily implement our tools into their various environments and systems?
I guess I'll go first. I'll go first real quick because I have, you know, if you've seen our public roadmap, which is roadmap.chia.net, one of the things that's on there is what we call the wallet SDK. And this is an SDK that we're building that helps you build wallets. And so with Chia, with everything being a coin on the network, in order to sort of manipulate those coins, you have to write a wallet. And that's currently something that's only done with our sort of consumer wallet. And typically a developer would do that through the RPCs that our wallet exposes. But what we want developers to be able to do is to bypass our wallet implementation and to be able to build their own specific wallet implementation that meets their own needs. And so we're building this wallet SDK in order to do that and to make that easier. Now, one of the goals of this wallet SDK is to have it be highly portable and to provide language bindings for many different languages. So we envision being able to write server-side applications in whatever your language would be. So Node.js, or you mentioned C# or .NET, that would be a target as well. And being able to target mobile apps. So we want to be able to target iOS and Android and even browser extensions. And so Wallet SDK, I hope, will be the answer to the question that you're asking. So that's my answer. Eric, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I'm going to take kind of a different angle on this one. So I'm a big fan of usability. That's kind of, I've almost built a career off of the whole concept of usability. And I acknowledge that Chia Lisp is hard. That said, it's incredibly powerful and it's the right tool to use, but that doesn't mean we can't make it easier. So one of the things that I'm very keen to hear about in the community, if you have ideas or cycles, or if there's any projects that are actually working on this, please hit me up on Keybase. But anyone who's making wrappers or things that are actually respecting what Chia Lisp provides, but making it more accessible and usable. And I'm not talking full feature like JavaScript wrapper around, you know, Chia Lisp, but something that gives you, you know, 60% functionality, something like that. I really want to encourage those projects. Right now, you know, our team isn't exactly building anything like that, but there is a real need in the community for that. Just as on-roads, easy path in, because right now I think Stack Overflow does their annual survey of developers, and 2021, I think it was 1.3% of developers know Lisp or a Lisp-like language. So incredibly, incredibly tiny percentage. So anything out there that's actually enabling developers around that, .NET languages, more kind of the everyone knows JavaScript, right? Things that enable use there are 2 thumbs up from my side.
Okay. Got a couple that are all kind of collectively together in the same like strategic high level like corporate stuff, Genes. We're gonna kind of lightning round you through a few here real quick. So we'll start off with, I live outside the US and I need to go through a few extra hoops in order to purchase US shares and companies. Do you have any recommendations for what this person can do to be ready to purchase shares in Chia when we go public, when they're listed, to make it a bit more easier for them?
So we're actually trying to take care of that on our end. Part of what we're going to be doing is when we put the banking syndicate together is I'm trying to make sure that we have both European access and Asian access directly from the issuers. And we're also going to try to make sure that we have some of the more retail-oriented folks at the bottom of the list so that you can get in and get on. Longer term, well, not even longer term, medium term, we also would probably cross-list to things like the Nikkei, the UK Stock Exchange. So, we hope to have the equity available multiple places. Then we're especially going to ultimately have the equity available on-chain as a Chia asset token. So you're going to be able to make an offer to acquire Chia stock with Chia on Chia.
Cool. Is there anything you can say about our current revenue sources for Chia Network?
I can say that we're now actually a revenue company. We signed our first contract recently. It is a kind of classic medium enterprise looking to integrate to Chia to do some certain business specific things. Can't really kind of give you more about that customer until they want to talk about it. But, and then right this second, the big things lined up next are the voluntary registries, some of the national registries, certain partners. One of the questions that's kind of sitting in there, I'll go ahead and answer it, is there will be a commercial relationship between ourselves and the Climate Action Data Trust. They are likely to be tier 1 support. We're kind of tier 2 and 3 support for them. But there is actually, a real commercial relationship there that's, money going our direction, but, conservatively, because they are a nonprofit kind of, running the backend infrastructure. The bigger partners are the folks who make carbon markets, the registries who are, we're likely to be a large percentage of their revenue. So you can imagine they very much want to make sure that we're paying attention.
All right. Along that line, of the previous one, has Chia Network committed to providing any ongoing support directly to the World Bank for the administration of the CADT after the rollout, separate from like what we did to actually get them up and running?
Yeah, that was what I was talking about, the commercial relationship. Yeah. We absolutely are. I would tell you that it was signed, but there's paperwork problems from their end that have nothing to do with us. So don't look at us. When dealing with real customers, doing real things, there are amusing problems out there in that world.
Okay. So now I'll touch on something real quick. This has been asked a couple times here, and we sort of drove the point home by talking about the holiday NFT, and by JM, Cameron, and I all wearing our Chia hoodies. So folks has asked about merch yet again. So a couple things I want to answer and also kind of clear up there. One of the questions is, because you could trade the holiday NFT for a merch, does that mean the merch store is up? And then of course the rest is when merch store, where merch store. So two parts to that. First of all, to be clear, the holiday NFT is not for merch. The cat that we gave you was, you can trade this for an NFT, or you can trade it for a discount on merch. And the reasoning for that was, there's a lot of people at the time we released the cat who just didn't care about NFTs, and we wanted to make sure they didn't feel like, oh, I get an NFT that I don't care about yet. So they get 2 cats. Everyone got 2 cats. And of course, they've been traded and bought and sold since then. But everyone got 2 cats who found a block. You could trade each one individually for a discount on merch or for an NFT, and that's still the case. So when the NFT redemptions go out, you can trade one for one NFT, you can trade both for 2. If you want to keep one for a discount on merch, you can, and you still can do that. We're going to do a 10% discount on merch for a cat. There are some logistics we have to figure out around that, but we're going to do that. To get to the next part, merch wear. We talk about this every time. There are some people internally who are working on merch. There's a couple complications. Yes, we have hoodies, but it's a bit different for staff hoodies because we have to make a small run batch with the vendor. They make us like 200, and we give them everyone who works here, and we give them the new hires. That's easy. Doing merch at scale is actually surprisingly hard. We have to get a vendor, and we have to get an e-commerce partner who can actually do all this. And then we have to put all that system in place to actually manufacture. And then the question is, do you manufacture them on demand? Do you manufacture them in bulk and buy a lot of merch and hope it's the merch people want and they buy it? Do you pay more per product, but you do it on demand and you never have a sunk cost in investing in stock? Lots of things like that to solve. Along with that, there's the branding repercussions, the design, the brand, and that kind of stuff. That's why when we brought in our new CMO this summer, merch was kind of, we didn't invest too hard in getting that answer solved because the marketing team obviously wanted a hand in our merch plans. They're now helping us kind of craft that. There are people internally who are driving it. I'm not day-to-day driving it anymore because there's much smarter people better qualified than me to do it. We have some stuff in place. We spoke about this in August. It was moving along. It is moving slow, and I'll be 100% honest with you guys. If you've looked at what we've done this year, if you look at what we've done this summer and fall, and you look at the stuff we talked about today, we've done some really big stuff. Pulling people off of those things to make merch, not the best business decision for us. So it's being worked on when and where we can, but it is not a higher priority than, say, the Climate Action Data Trust. So we're gonna make you guys able to buy merch so you can rep us with pride. Don't worry, we're gonna get there. I'm not gonna commit to any dates or expectations, but like, I would feel remiss if you couldn't buy merch, at least buy, if not on the day of our IPO. That would be kind of silly if you couldn't rep us the day we go public. So that's a good flag in the sand I am willing to plant, aside from any actual deadlines.
Hurry up.
Say what? Yeah, I know. Seth, Allison, help. Green's putting pressure on me again. All right. So I had a really great one here, cherry picked out after I did that. This one, I guess, Gene, how are we feeling as a company so far about NFTs and Chia? Are we hitting our expectations? Are we below, above expectations? Are there community ecosystem projects that just kind of knock things out of the water? I have some thoughts on that too, but
Sure.
I'll let you start.
Yeah, I'll do quick and then turn it over because I want everybody to comment. I mean, I will say I was pleasantly surprised. I think it's a little better than I expected things to be. And I'm really happy about the kind of crossover messaging. You know, what's been really nice is like, I never expected we have a like stream of hexagons and a stream of Solana folks really seriously thinking about, hey, wait, this does solve a lot of the problems we're dealing with in our ecosystems, and out there evangelizing that. So I'm really excited about that, you know, that, Amakasa, everything else going on. And, you know, I obviously get kind of pitched every NFT project on Chia. I apologize that my taste means that some of them are not my favorites, but like Chia Rex was pretty cool this morning, you know, and like, I gotta, you know, shout out the OGs for Space Rats, who did an amazingly as well. You know, I think they set off the trend there. Anyway, my point is, love it, you know, really supportive of it. It's a large portion of what is high value transaction right now on Chia. And, you know, at worst, you can say that it's only been kind of flat to growing in a horrible market out there generally, which is great. You know, the fact that we're showing some positive growth, even though like the entire world is shot to hell, including equities, debt, and everything else. I like it.
You would finish right as I take a drink.
Sorry.
That's okay. From the ecosystem point of view, there's really cool stuff. There's, you know, NFTs. I really like functional NFTs that have utility. That's my thing that gets me excited. And of course, there's kind of a initial zeitgeist explosion of just art NFTs, and they were pretty neat ones. I get a lot of pressure from some of the folks in the community to put, for example, my photography work into NFTs, and people really like them, and like they bought all of them. But now we're starting to see people get creative with them, and that's what really excites me is the creativity. Great example. We don't have an Ethereum name service like standard yet when NFTs first started happening. And some community devs were like, well, that's dumb. They should have that. And they went and made one like really quick, and it's all NFT based. And it's got kind of a semi-prototype DAO behind it. And it's just a really cool thing. The community was just kind of like, let's do something that isn't art, you know, and things like that popping up is what really excites me. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add to that before I move on?
Ditto.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been remarkable to me to see one, just the sheer amount of profile pic projects that have come along, but then the iterations on that are incredibly clever. And I see you guys out there, like the stuff you're posting on Twitter, and I don't always comment on it, but there's a lot of neat stuff, and I really appreciate the passion people have for, you know, kind of seeing where these tools will take them.
Well, and look, I was with a large commercial bank yesterday, and we were talking about these tools, and I was like, look, you know, people have gone out and made a Twitter bot that will create an NFT and immediately offer it to you by simply tagging a tweet. Nice work, Josh. And they're like, really? You know, so that's kind of a real eye opener about how these primitive tools can do interesting things.
We don't need a Twitter bot to do that around here. We just tag Roy in a conversation,
Roy is our Twitter bot,
and he just makes an NFT instantly about it.
Odds are this will be an NFT.
Yeah. He is a human shit poster of NFTs internally. I love it. Justin, this question is there a plan to make Chia quantum resistant like algo?
So first of all, I will worry about quantum computing when two quantumly entangled electrons work through a logic gate on an actual CPU somewhere. Do that, and we can have a real table stakes conversation about quantum computing. Barring that, we do have options. Like we have Abraham Cohen, who is constantly thinking of these sort of crazy, super mind things. We have ways. If we had to crash patch tomorrow, like aliens show up and hand us a quantum CPU, and we can do it. We have ideas on what we can do to make the network resilient to quantum computers. But again, like, gird that with, you may as well be as afraid of snarks or gremlins or other things that are, that go bump in the night, because quantum computing is a very scary thing for cryptography, but it's also, we've yet to see it work in reality. I've seen a lot of really cool experiments, but nothing that, shows me that they're going to be able to be breaking all of the cryptography we have from the 21st century yet.
Well, also let me add very specifically. So for all the, not even blockchain primitives, the primitives below around proof of space and time and everything else, the only thing that isn't easily either already quantum resistant or there are well-known options to swap it out, the only thing that's in that category is the VDF. And it turns out earlier this week, a quantum proof VDF was actually published in the literature. And so you're already at a place where if we had to, it would not perform as well as we want today, but you're already at a place where it's immediately replaceable. So from that perspective, we're not very worried. Things like single key cryptography, BLS, other things, we already have some quantum hardening in our keys that you may or may not know about as part of the EAP 1779. I may get the EAP wrong, but point being, we in the Ethereum Foundation and others tried to make sure that there was a backdoor to be able to go post quantum if necessary. So, and Bram and I have been on some very large public policy calls to try to remind people that there are a lot of people trying to sell you quantum snake oil. Quantum's not ready yet. Quantum may very well happen, and so we should be eyes open, but both not worried in the next 5 to 10 years and have real solutions, even if that were the case.
And I think quantum is like the new metaverse buzzword. People hear it and they all have different interpretations, and everyone's trying to sell you on their interpretation, like you said, for Sneago reasons. I think a lot of people too, they hear quantum computing and their takeaway is a new type of supercomputer that basically can do everything better than anything can possibly do now, and as well the streams. And the reality is they're purpose-built special cases. It's like the concept of ASICs. Like a quantum computer for X is not the same as a quantum computer that can do Y. And so we're not going to, in 2 years, I'll have home desktops that are just ultra powerful and ruin everything. That's not the actual reality. So I got one here for you, Eric. So this person asks, actually this is, well, I'll get to that in the answer part. In alignment with your comments on increasing Chia Lisp adoption, this person's looked for some kind of initiative on the roadmap to enable non-technical users to create coins in the same manner as a financial professional can use something like the Marlowe playground that Cardano has to create smart contracts really easily for a layman type use case. Do you have any kind of timeline or goal for something equivalent to be set up for us, or do you believe it probably won't be possible in the same manner? Any comments you can make on that? So before I turn it over to you on that, a couple of things I'll add to that is that when it comes to things on the developer roadmap, that's kind of more of a Cameron area. So he might have thoughts he wants to add to this as well. But I'll preface all of that as the ecosystem czar here, in that stuff like that is important. A really easy tool to let people, for example, kick out cats or kick out NFTs or things. But I will add to that, that's not our focus on what we're building here. That does not mean it's not important to us. It 100% is. But I'm a firm believer, as a person who works in developer ecosystems, that there are things that only you can make, and there are things that anyone can make. And when you have a finite number of resources, as in developers and hours of developers and money, and you have a vibrant developer community, you need to figure out what can only you make and what can developers make, and make sure you split that pie efficiently and effectively. Stuff like that, we can certainly help splash the pot and kind of spur development in, but I think we're better served with an ecosystem of developers who make things like that. And then I'll let Eric, if you want to talk more from there.
So this is a problem with this both being an ecosystem, because you completely stole my answer. So I'm going to take it in a little bit of a different direction.
For those who don't know, I'm Eric's boss. I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah. So what I'm going to talk about is actually very related to this and completely ties in. But one of the things I would like to do, probably not in the next quarter, but coming up at some point in the future when we have internal resources to properly support, is I want to help incentivize more developer projects out there, other than just the grants. We have the grants program, we have all that, which helps people to build tooling in the community. It's a really good structure. It's somewhat limited in scope. What I'd like to do is I'd actually start to like doing hackathons, and I don't mean hackathons and let's do crypto hackathons and throw a ton of money around and it goes nowhere and does nothing for anyone and we call it community building. I'm talking hackathons where we identify a problem in the tooling. So something like you had laid out here, we identify a problem, something we don't have, something that we need, and something that our team just is not going to have the focus to build. And we incentivize the community to go out and solve that problem with a little bit of cash there to grab in the process. The reason I like doing it that way is because we essentially don't end up with one solution. Hopefully we end up with like 5 or 6 really good solutions, and a lot of other things fall out from that. So that's kind of my answer. But yes, I agree with everything Jay just said. Limited resources, we got to prioritize things. And wouldn't you rather have a wonderful blockchain that works amazingly well, and then you get to go build the awesome tools to do all the specific little things with that blockchain? So
okay, cool. Cameron, someone wants to follow up about something you talked about earlier. Can you speak any more about the message coin concept for on-chain notifications for things like direct messages, or most importantly, like offer notifications from wallet to wallet?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we released NFTs a few months ago, we were really excited about all the not only NFT projects that were launching, but all the marketplace activity that was happening. It was really exciting to see, but we did notice that a problem with the current sort of marketplace activity was that most of the activity was somebody had an NFT, they posted an offer to sell it, and then if there was somebody who was interested in that NFT, then it's very efficient and easy for them to download that offer and accept it. But there are a lot of NFTs out there that people would be interested in buying that the owner hasn't put up an offer for. Now, as the owner of an NFT, I might be interested in selling an NFT that I own. I just haven't gone through the trouble of picking a price, making an offer, uploading it to a marketplace. And so that's the problem that we wanted to solve. And so the message coin is our solution to that. And so our first implementation of the message coin will allow a user to say, here's an NFT or an asset on chain that I'm interested in buying. Here's the price that I'd be willing to pay for it. Construct an offer for that, and then notify the owner of that asset that there is an offer for their asset. And so we're doing that with an on-chain sort of coin that we call the message coin. And yeah, that's what we're working on. We hope to release it. I don't have a date to put on it yet, but it's high priority for us and we're actively working on it.
Cool, thank you. Gene, I got two kind of go hand in hand here, which I'm pretty sure you probably knew when you saw them. So what were the small inbound transactions in the pre-firm wallet prior to the move? And then the follow-up question to that, which covers them, is what did we do with all the dust that went into the pre-firm wallet, which is what those transactions were?
Yeah. So we got dust. We got some tips. I mean, there's people definitely saying it's like a Chia thank you, right? And by the way, some of those tips got used as the fees to send the pre-farm to its new places. Just because we were running up against this event and I needed to get my Twitter thread out. Sometime next week or two, we will probably take those dust and consolidate them. And it turns out we have a hot wallet of Chia we've bought and that we use internally for like minting things and those sorts of things. So sometime in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us pick up all that dust and move some of the NFTs that people have graciously donated to the pre-farm addresses. So ultimately, those addresses—
I want the Great Wave one, please. It's one of my favorite pieces of art.
Okay. You'll have to talk to Misha about that. But so anyway, we'll be cleaning that up. And that's sometime in the next 2 weeks. But you know, the keys in question went from being worth nearly $700 million to being worth about $80.
All right. Let's see. Gene, do you have any comments on any other industries that have shown interest, kind of like the World Bank?
Absolutely. So there are more than just this, but the things that are really kind of high on the radar is certain large commercial banks. We're actively engaged with them about exploring, what opportunities they have. And it kind of fits in this category of a lot of the banks did take a serious look at blockchains in 2017 and said, okay, there's a thing here for us. There's value that would be created by us using these, but the state of the art at the time wasn't capable. And Chia is the first time that these big organizations can see a blockchain that really does, have all of the capabilities they need and allows them in some cases to run on training wheels. So instead of launching a private blockchain, they can launch a public blockchain application and data layer, which is really locked down, but then is already on a public blockchain. So as they get comfortable with it, then they can start to, do things like proof of inclusion and include third parties and get composability and, really move out or start to lower the restrictions in interacting with their application. So there's that. The other thing is with our engagement with the World Bank and the IFC, there are a couple of countries who are very serious about replacing their agricultural receipts with a blockchain-enabled system. And what these are, so that everybody kind of understands this, in the global south, you'll drive up with a semi-truck full of tomatoes and you'll weigh them and you're like, okay, I dropped off 70,000 pounds of tomatoes at an agricultural warehouse. You get a receipt and you can take that receipt to the bank and actually borrow money against it, because the idea is that those tomatoes are going to get sold and there's going to be cash flows. And so you use that to, pay your fertilizer bill or whatever. Now, if you think about what I just said, it's really quite through and through with fraud, because you can bribe the weighmaster to weigh you higher, or the weighmaster may weigh you lower and you don't know, or you may present a receipt that is a forgery. So you can imagine why there's a tremendous idea of being able to have the kind of bearer receipts on chain where the banks know, yeah, this is really it, and the governments are able to watch in aggregate what weigh stations are saying they got in total tomatoes versus the revenue of tomatoes from that weigh station, right? So all of a sudden you make it much harder to do most of the cheating at the edge or even directly by doing that. So that's the other major thing we're seeing. Beyond that, there's a lot of interest that are people come to us thinking they have an NFT problem and then figure out they actually want to do something slightly different, that the NFT is what kind of drew them into doing it. But there are people who are thinking about making new types of markets. Gosh, what else? But so there's quite a few things, but those are kind of the big, top of the waves. The other thing I'd say is various types of debt are kind of one of the next things you'll see us kind of getting into, because it's that step between here and like public equity. And, debt still requires things like registration, but is a far more kind of limited market. And in being a limited market, it means it's actually probably getting underpriced. There's not enough people. It's not as easy to trade as it should be. And blockchain's going to make that much easier. Plus also, things like secure the bag can change how debt works pretty dramatically. Today, debt's kind of paid annually or semi-annually, and secure the bag, you could pay it daily if you wanted to, and all of a sudden the price of your debt wouldn't deviate from its face value. There's all sorts of those kinds of things that are interesting. But I think you're going to see some very big boys do some very interesting things. They take time. They're not all going to let us talk about it. Some will, and it's a pretty exciting time.
Thank you. Eric, is it technically possible to build Uber on Chia?
Short answer, yes. Long answer, square peg, round hole. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on Chia. That's saying don't build Uber on a blockchain.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Uber is actually, if I remember correctly from their blogs, they're built on Apache Cassandra. They do something like 3 or 4 million transactions a second. Just not the right thing to use. Like blockchain, slow database, but really, really distributed, really, really auditable, really, really has really interesting social implications. Uber needs really, really high volume. So yeah, square peg, round hole, technically possible, horrible experience.
Yeah, I say to people, blockchain is an amazing solution to some problems. Doesn't need to be the solution to all problems. You're better off being an amazing solution to some problems.
One of my favorite things about the Twitter litigation with Elon was where he's like, is it yet another person trying to tell me that blockchain should be used for Twitter? No. Anyway.
Let's see. Gene, here's one for you. How is Bram? How hard is on-chain gaming? And will it come with state channels?
Bram's great.
That question's all over the place there, but it's all related to Bram, basically.
Yeah, totally. And Bram and I are about to get on planes this weekend and go to Singapore, and we're going to be at the Singapore FinTech Festival. We're both speaking at various different things. Bram's excited. He's actually writing Chia Lisp, and it's been causing excellent knock-on effects where the compiler is getting better. Thank you, Art, on the team. If you know who you are, if you know who you are. So you're going to see some really positive things there, and it's really allowed Bram to kind of work through some third-order things. There's been an interesting thread. Some of the Bitcoin Core and Lightning folks and he were all talking about, the kind of state of the art here, and we're pushing the state of the art. There's actually a Stanford blockchain paper from, I guess it's now 2 months ago, that were some of the ideas, and it kind of feels a little bit like what happened when we updated New Consensus a couple years ago as well. So yeah, very excited. Things like Sudoku, a variant of poker, a couple other things. Not exactly sure how we're going to launch it, so that's still kind of internally a conversation we're having about how it's going to actually work. But it really is building all the pieces necessary to do payment channels. And long term, we think that there are some neat things about how we've structured our business and our network and our assets that means that we can kind of make payment channel liquidity pretty easy to handle. It's an ultimately longer term use of the pre-farm. And so we're kind of excited about that. So we are doing the things necessary to be ready to scale to tens of thousands to 100,000s of TPS all told. But at the same time, we don't need to rush there. We want to get that 40 TPS used up in a strong manner first.
Okay, thank you. So let's while we have you here, let's slide into a little bit of global politics here for you, Gene. So the question here is, how does the appointment of Rishi Sunak as the new Prime Minister of the UK affect Chia entering the UK financial sector? Mm-hmm. And does is his people already aware of us, or does it change anything we're doing there? And I'll add for folks who kind of want a bit know about the context of where we're going in that with the question. So new Prime Minister formerly was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was basically heavily tied to the UK's financial industry before becoming the Prime Minister. So there's a correlation there.
For the rare time, the Prime Minister is worth more than the King. So what I can say is that it is a positive development. They are serious about taking crypto seriously. They think it has real use and real value. I, can't opine specifically whether his office is completely aware of us, but I can tell you specifically that the UK government itself has a Chia wallet, used it to do a proof of concept with the last iteration of the Climate Warehouse, and is a likely early adopter of CADT. So already, part of the conversation inside, and that we do have pretty high level contacts into the government there from various of our public policy efforts here in the United States as well. So it's more I'm spending much of November in the UK, and I'll have a different answer after I'm back.
Cool. Thank you, sir. So let's see here. Y'all aren't picking questions, or you're finding these boring. I'm kidding. No one's finding these questions boring. So this is the one that I don't quite get the question, but Gene, you tagged it. So I'm clearly you know where they're going with this and have an answer. So I'll let you I don't understand what I'm asking you, but is the value of a cat always tied to the value of XCH itself, or can a cat become more valuable? I mean, obviously, yeah, but I'm assuming there's more you want to kind of go into there.
Yeah, I was going to say, yes, absolutely. Look, the whole idea behind a cat is that you've turned something into an actual representation of the underlying asset you're pointing it at. And so, in fact, like Bram and I have discussed that, I kind of chose the cat confluence number, and it turns out that for really high value assets, the cat may not have enough decimal points, for example. But yeah, no, it's absolutely designed such that there could very well be a cat that is absolutely worth a hell of a lot more than the value of the mojos or even a full Chia. And I think we already kind of see that in certain cases. Like I've seen certain cats that are probably on a single cat basis worth more than one Chia per cat. But obviously, not the Chia underneath is nothing close. However, that could, change, right? So point being that, yeah, no, these are totally independent thoughts. There are some very strange, perverse incentives potentially from a security perspective, but that's a whole long different conversation that we don't have to go into here.
Yeah, there also was a point, I think, I forget, was it Spacebucks or maybe Holiday Chia token? No, Marmot, the Marmot cat. Marmot. They trade for far more than a single Chia.
Yeah, Marmot is worth a hell of a lot more than a single Chia.
Yeah, I think a Marmot's basically worth $100, the equivalent of Chia, give or take. Yeah.
I think it would be down. I think it was bigger than that. Yeah.
Yeah. It just scrolled on me. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. So kind of going off of cats a bit more, and also going back to your previous conversation that we talked about Chia shares on the chain. This person had a follow-up question for you after that. Quick follow-up. Thank you for getting my question, they say. Do you anticipate CNI, that's shorthand for Chia Network Inc., the actual company, not the technology, folks, CNI shares being the Chia blockchain's first such tokenized offering on the chain?
It depends what you mean by tokenized offering. If you're talking about public equity, it might be. But if you're talking about like registered debt or other things, it's probably not likely to be the first. So, we intentionally are going to be a bit of a guinea pig with our own self. As an issuer, you have a lot of control that the SEC kind of can't back away if you're a fully registered entity. If you're not, like if you're a third party trying to tokenize equity, you go through the 40 Act side of the SEC, and the 40 Act side has been very recalcitrant. These are the people who have not been approving the grayscale Bitcoin ETF, for example. But the 33 and 34 Act side, which is the primary side that we will interact with, is not very afraid of this. They consider, Coinbase and all of the minor companies that have already gone public, they're much more of a kind of services organization for public companies. They're going to have, questions and details to work out, but as an issuer, we can issue, hopefully it's the same class of stocks. So if you own common Chia shares and you own common digital shares, they're the same. Worst case, it's two classes of stock that are exactly equivalent in rights and value and everything else, and you can just turn them in with our transfer agent to whichever side you want to be on.
All right. Cameron, here's one for you. This person asks, they've gotten different answers from different community members, and they kind of want some clarity. Can an NFT, at least under the NFT 1 standard, does the tooling support actually melting it down completely? Is that possible or not?
Yeah, I was scrambling to find the definitive answer because I didn't want to give yet another answer. But my understanding at the moment is that we initially intended for them to be meltable, but it turns out that they are actually not meltable. And
it's almost like they're non-fungible.
Yeah. And so yeah, right now it's just you got to send them to a burn address.
Yeah. Which I mean, to be fair, they're supposed to be non-fungible, and that's it fits the name. Yeah. All right. Oh, Gene is typing an answer for this one. I was about to read that to you, but never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's one that a couple people have tried to say they want to answer. So I'll let multiple folks try to answer this one. This person says, I'm sitting on too much Chia. First of all, I call BS. That's not a true thing. There's no such thing as too much Chia. But anyways, I'm sitting on too much Chia. When will I be able to earn some return, like providing liquidity, maybe via Chia debt markets or an AMM?
I think I was one of the ones who raised my hand on that. So first off, I have an address you can send it to. It's a great little storage box that I'll keep. No, okay. But for real though, there is nothing I'm aware of currently, and if anyone here knows anything, please correct me. But there's nothing I'm aware of currently where you can just go and provide liquidity. However, there are a lot. This is kind of something I'm throwing out to the universe, and we'll see what lands. There are a lot of projects on Chia that need a whole lot of funding, and you guys should all be talking.
Mm-hmm.
That's my stance here, because if you have buckets and buckets of money that you can't put to work, and people need buckets and buckets of money so they can go to work.
And we've actually had an interesting conversation with 2 or 3 community devs, because 2 or 3 different community devs have come to me and said, I want to build a thing on Chia, and we need some more funding. In some cases, we pointed them towards applying for a cultivation grant. In other cases, that maybe wasn't the right solution for them. But in all their cases, they were like, we're trying to figure out ways you can get some funding to build this thing. And what do you think we could do? And in many of those cases, I was like, well, what would be really great would be if we had some kind of DAO or something in place that allowed people to put in Chia liquidity, and those funds would go towards automatically like little mini grants towards community developers they could then use, and some kind of return from that goes back into the people who contributed to the fund, just kind of automating that. And a lot of them like, yeah, it'd be really cool if someone would built that. Anyways, we want to get some money to build something, and we also need ideas on what we can build. Any thoughts? And I was like, well, if you don't know for sure what you want to build, I think I just gave you one. But anyways, seeing something like that come from the community would actually be really great. Again, lots of things we can build, a lot of things we can build, finite amount of time in which to build them. And we need to be focusing on the things that only we can build for people. And these are the kind of things we'd love to see from the community. It's the kind of things that will probably get you a cultivation grant too, if you came to me with a really good proposal for it.
Yeah, and look, to be clear, to answer the question, there are at least 2 projects that I'm aware of that are going to have real yield because they're doing real things, and they're not risk-free. So you need to make sure you pay attention. Is it written right? Those sorts of things. But if it is working correctly, the yield's coming from you're securing something and people are paying for that. You're getting liquidity and you're paying for that. We're not going to do any of this stuff that's TVL. That's completely bullcrap. Like, not doing that. But the good news is that we're going to have real things making real value and not some financial chicanery. Coming soon.
With that said, that's basically all the questions that we have gotten in that folks we've kind of gone over and gone through. Is there any other stuff we have that you guys want to talk about or go over that we haven't yet so far? Or
there was one question I didn't tag, but I should just go ahead and answer it. You know, is the price a problem? No, in fact, I think the price is kind of opposite. When you look at us in BTC terms, you know, on June 15th, then the most recent downturn, we tend to pop a little bit when everything else goes to hell. I think that is a rotation into quality, and I can tell you that's been an excellent component when we're talking to partners and investors and others. They understand that, you know, everything's bad. It's not just us, but we're doing much better in a bad situation than many other projects are. So not a problem at all.
Cool. With that said, then, does anyone have any closing thoughts or closing statements they want to share?
The pre-farm is now truly secure.
This custody tool is the coolest thing that exists. It's the coolest thing that I worked on this year, and I've worked on a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, Josh asked, you know, what's the coolest thing we're all looking forward to? The stuff we're going to do in custody is going to blow people's minds. Yeah. It's totally going to change the game on whether you want to use a centralized exchange or not at all. You know, it's even get to the place where, and I was having a conversation with, again, a big commercial bank yesterday, and it's like, you know, we can go and take their SOX controls and make them better on chain than they ever could be in the real world. It's cool stuff.
I know, because I had this conversation with an auditor last week.
Yeah, our big four auditor was like, you can do that? That's game changing.
Which is kind of the name of the game around here for us, is game changing. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for everyone joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. My sincere apologies for the top of the first 10 minutes of the technical difficulties on YouTube. We dial this in, and then a few sessions later, YouTube changes how things work. That said, Zoom has now released a new feature, apparently in the last month, that allows us to stream these direct to YouTube without any intermediary software. So I'll be using that starting next time. And as always, I'll be testing it beforehand. So apologies for the pain. Unfortunately, our archive of this is going to miss the top of the first 5 or 10 minutes. But thank you, everyone who joined us. Thank you, everyone who joined us on YouTube as well. If you ask questions on YouTube, we try to get to some of them. If we didn't, my apologies. We can't capture them very easily from YouTube chat. Yeah, so we will see you all at either our next AMA or else our next Q&A if we do want to buy a particular product or something between now and then. So yeah, everyone have a great one, and happy Friday and happy weekend.
DGIF around the world.
Yeah, have a good weekend, guys.
Yep.
Bye-bye.